You have such an official setup.
Well, I do. You do a podcast now? I
I
saw. I know you did a Zoom recently that you posted.
yeah, I'm just starting like a Instagram Zoom sort of thing discussion show. It's
Oh,
more of a
that's
show than
cool.
a podcast, but I guess I could turn it into a podcast. I mean, I don't know how to
I don't know. I mean, it may be the right way to go. I mean, it's like TikTok and Instagram are far more, I think, accessed by a much larger variety of people, certainly than podcasts, and it's a lot less. It might be. I don't know. It's so much work to do this week after week. I'm just, and it's and my show isn't scripted, but it's still it just takes so much of my time. And like this past weekend, I post on Fridays, but my son had a little bit of there was a medical thing happen. I had to drive down to the city, get him because I'm a little upstate, and then had to take him to the emergency room. And he was fine. He's fine, but it was this whole thing. And so by the time, that was on Thursday night, and I was in the hospital like till like 1 in the morning. It wasn't so bad. Like if I did it in the city, I would have been overnight. You know how that goes.
yeah,
But
I spent one or two nights in the emergency room. You
yeah,
don't
well, it's gonna
you
happen.
don't yeah. I
And
mean,
then if you're in the city, which I've always done it in this was my first time going to it, but I know that I was no actually it was the second time because I was had to go just to be checked out for I was in a car accident, but I was fine. It sorry sounds pretty dramatic, right?
I
Anyway,
mean, it happens in life, but at least both you and your son are okay. Remind me his name again.
absolutely. What?
Remind me his name again. He looks so
Jake?
much like you too.
Jake. Yeah, Jacob. Yeah, thanks.
Did
I
you
it was
meet?
funny, I was reminded, did you meet him? Because
No, I don't think so.
I remember I had completely forgotten until like my brain caught up with me that you had been on a few years back with
I
Jehovah.
hope that's okay.
It's even better.
You have a returning guest.
Yes, which is always welcome. I'm only sorry that it didn't happen sooner, honestly. But I was like, oh my God, wait a minute. I remember the circumstances. You and Jehovah came over in Brooklyn and we did the show together, talked about her film. And yeah, it was like, I don't know. I guess it's from the sheer number of these things. After a while, you just,
I
but
know. I mean, I honestly don't even remember some of my own screenings because, I mean, it's been 7 years. I feel like when we did that
it's
interview,
incredible.
that was just when I was just starting Alfreda Cinema and Tavia had just done her first film, and that was getting a lot of buzz, um, and
Yeah.
yeah, I guess the rest is history.
Well, that what's in,
And
what's that?
I said, how have you been though?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I mean, I made a drastic change, but I get down to the city as frequently as I need to. But I was burnt out.
Yeah. Is it fair to be burned out at 33?
Yes. Yeah. If you're, and then your work full time, and then you also have a film series, and everything else you're probably trying to do.
Yeah,
And
I just couldn't deal with everything that was kind of occurring at the distribution company I was working at.
okay,
And actually ended up leaving there just as the pandemic had kind of forced us, to work from home, and it was the best decision I've ever made.
good. Well, that's great when you make decisions and you don't look back and regret them or second guess yourself. That's a good thing. I feel the same way about just making the change. And I kind of came with no real, I mean, doing it during a period where there was all this money coming in for free, you know, helped because I could just make this change. And, but I didn't really have a
So you
plan, for the long term yet, and unfortunately, it worked out.
so you left the city during the pandemic
Yeah,
to move
pretty early
out?
on because I was ready to go. I mean, I needed a change. I didn't, and I really, my lifestyle, I wasn't able to like have a second place. So, being in the arts and everything. So I made a decision to be not too far, but like and my dad, I lost my father. There was all these circumstances going on, and then I kind of had a feeling that the pandemic was just going to come back because it was not like we knew that it was not going to go away like we figured. The early news was like it was coming, but it would be gone by the summer, and then it would probably be coming back again in the fall, winter. And I'm like, I don't want to go through this again in like inside of an apartment for another however many months stuck inside. I didn't know what, nobody really knew what it was going to be like. So I just said, I'm just going to do this. I don't know if it's going to be temporary or you know, how long, but yeah, so I just did this crazy stuff. But I was also just very dramatic, the family stuff. So I packed up my dad's place and my stuff, and I just decided to do it. I found a place on Craigslist, and I know people up here in
Where
this.
are you?
I'm near Bard College, so
Okay.
I'm in this kind of artsy area anyway. Like there's a lot of arts, and um, there's just a lot of creative and progressive minded people. It's just like there's not too many places I can move, and like then have my son and come up and hang out here and feel like this. But here he can, it's so, and it's Kingston is across the river, and then you have Woodstock isn't too far, and there's just like a lot of variety up here, and it's really there's a lot of cool towns with lots of really amazing things going on in the you know and there's a lot of filmmakers up here too, actually, it turns out.
Mhm.
Can't get away from them, Melissa. I tried. They just don't.
I mean, I do think that everybody's a filmmaker in New York.
Right,
That almost is a prevalent hot occupation as DJing.
right.
And
And
it's
they do both up
and
here,
now that, and now that you can film on your phone. I mean, who isn't a filmmaker?
right. Well,
Who isn't
and
an
everybody, and the last thing that's happened since, especially since the pandemic, is now everybody's a podcaster. Everybody. I mean, when I started off, I like to tell this story that 11 years ago, which is a shocking thing when I started. I mean, it really wasn't a podcast at the very beginning, but it became one pretty quick. And I was going to break it off and do it myself. I was with this internet radio show first, and they did all the tech stuff for me, and they had a studio and everything. And when I decided to break off and just make it a podcast, I didn't really know how to do that, So I was kind of trying to find somebody who podcasted and who could give me some, you know, basic information about what you do. And I couldn't find it. It took a while to find somebody to get, some support. And now I joke that like I could knock on my neighbor's door and I'd be interrupting them doing their podcast, because it's like everybody's got a podcast. So maybe except for you, but you probably already have one, and maybe you don't even know you do.
Well,
Anyway,
electric canvas was kind of the I mean, the idea came from podcasting,
right,
but I prefer to kind of leave it on social media at this time, just because I mean it's easier to conduct the calls, and then it could just be so quickly uploaded to Instagram
right,
with some better editing, and I have a show.
right. It's very true. You just need stuff to talk about, and you do, which is great. And like also the other thing that happened like during the pandemic was Zooming, right? So that just became ubiquitous. So that actually really was another reason why I felt I could go, because I think if I had left and I didn't have the Filmwax stuff to do it all, I would have felt really bereft. Like it would have been like almost like severing a limb or something, I kind of mean that, it's been something that, as much as sometimes I get burnt out about it, it's just like this thing that it's got a trajectory of its own, and I just have become such a part of what I do and who I am that it's like the idea of stopping it. Although I sometimes do think about like, well, maybe I should just do something different,
I
But
mean, I definitely have had the thought of, if I just stopped Alfreda Cinema, would people even know it had existed? And that's pretty bleak and dreary.
but you've been doing it for 7 years. I mean, I was started Filmwax as a film series before I did the podcast in Brooklyn. I was doing like every Sunday afternoon, and I would invite filmmakers, and it wasn't really more complicated than that. I certainly didn't have an agenda in terms of trying to create more of a space for people of color, for instance, although I would like to think it was somewhat of a diverse film selection, but I'm not so sure it was. But you've been doing this for 7 years. So how many films do you think you've shown in that amount of time? Or how many events have you like hosted?
Probably about 20 or so, 25
Well,
maybe.
that's not so bad.
Maybe actually probably more because I guess I have to maybe 6 per year. If you want to do the math for me, that'd be great.
All right, so it's maybe between 25 and 35, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you often partner then? Like I know you partner with Metrograph, for instance. They've been very supportive, right?
You mean like partner with theaters?
Yeah.
Like what do you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, well, I consider myself sort of in residence at Metrograph
Okay.
as an ongoing series.
Okay.
And other
Fantastic. Well, that's great.
Yes, it's nice to have a consistent place to screen. It is. I mean, the series kind of essentially started at Videology in Williamsburg, and then
I remember, yeah.
I was dormant for like a year or so, thinking, where am I gonna go next? What's beyond Videology? And I was lucky enough to form a friendship with I heard that Jake Perlin was your former camper.
Yes,
Jake
no. He was my counselor.
Oh, I thought you said you were his
No, I
counselor.
was his counselor. I was. That's so funny. You remember he told you that? And yeah, I was at like, that right next door, you're right around the corner from BAM, that music school.
I actually went to that music school.
You did?
Brooklyn School.
You
Yeah.
did? That's funny.
Well, New York, a small town.
Yeah, you're right. They had this one time. This Al Maisels was still alive and well, and he was doing a talk with a couple of other younger. I mean, everybody's younger when you're Al Maisels' age at that point, but he did with I forget who the other filmmakers were. So I go into this place. I'm very excited because there's Al Maisels, and I'm walking in, and this guy had taken the ticket at the door, welcoming people right at the entrance. Said, "Are you Adam Shartoff?" And I, which I'm sorry, I'm not talking to people right now. Talk to my publicist. Yes, I'm. It was Jake, and I did. His hair had moved around a little bit. Jake, if you're watching, I love you. So don't. And it took a while because I hadn't thought of him. And the difference is this: when I was a camp counselor, when I was his camp counselor, even though I was pretty young, I was an adult. So I didn't change all that much. My looks, my appearance hasn't changed. But he was a kid. And now he was like a middle-aged guy. So, or maybe on the precipice of that. So anyway, he had changed his look. But after a little while, the synapses start to kick in. And yeah, I remembered who he was. I knew his name and he's so familiar, but it took a little while to remember him. And then he showed me a photo. I'm like, oh my God, of course. I remember he had such attitude. Oh my God.
I can't picture him as a child.
Oh, you would not believe it. I'll send you a photo. I'm sure I've got photos.
I hope you do, because he only showed me one photo of himself, younger.
He showed it to you?
Well, he showed me an ID photo at one point.
Okay.
I was dying to take a photo of, but he refused me. But
that's funny. Yeah. So you connected with Jake, and then he invited you to that's fantastic.
Yeah, he invited me to, admittedly I was bothering him. I mean,
I like
I was
that. I like being bothered.
I was so excited to meet him after a screening of Personal Problems because I had known Kazembe through the Brecht Forum. He was so brilliant at Brecht. And I mean, when you know Kazembe, you know him for life, like I
Mhm.
feel like. And I had somehow finagled a way to get Kazembe to introduce us. And then we just, you know, connected on mutual film interests. We both had a love for the film Nothing But a Man by Michael Romer. And, you know, he was kind enough to actually really engage with me after that. I mean, Jake is such a pleasant person when it comes to just, you know, arts and culture, and especially when it comes to Black cinema. I mean, as quiet as it's kept, he's one of, you know, the more sensitive filmmakers towards, you know, that entity, I will say, of cinema. I think he does such wonderful programming of Black life. And so I've always kind of been inspired by him since he had worked at BAM, actually, because that was, I was around the corner already. You know, I was I was going to
Right.
classes around the corner, music classes, and
What
I
was
would
your
go to BAM,
instrument?
saxophone and violin.
Oh, wow.
Second time I've answered that question this week. I feel like maybe the universe is telling me to get back into
One of them, maybe. I mean,
it.
do you buy rosin or do you buy a reed? I'm just showing off.
I mean, you have to get both if you want to play well. But I think I was better on the saxophone, to be honest.
I took saxophone in junior high school in band class. I thought I actually got kind of good, um, but they
You're
would
from,
give you what?
you're from New York, right?
Yeah.
Like raised.
What's that?
I said born and raised.
Yeah. I grew up in Queens. I went to high school, junior high in Forest Hills, but I went to actually in high school in Jamaica, Queens, home of our beloved ex-president, and and did not know him, fortunately. But yeah, music has always been, not to get off track. We're talking about you, but the been a big part of my. And I again, full once that pandemic hit, I immersed myself back in musically also. And now I work in a radio station. It's all music all the time.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Actually, I got to collecting vinyl over the pandemic, which really was like therapy for sure. And actually found myself doing some gigs here and there since then. So yeah, music's actually has
more.
really been a major part of getting through these last few years.
I agree
But
with
you know, music is healing. Music is healing.
you totally. I mean, you could say that about film certainly too. When did your love or interest, I'll say love, a passion for films begin? Do you remember?
I mean, I guess I feel like everyone says as a child, but I mean, film kind of was that very special. I just had a very special relationship actually with watching television.
Hmm.
Um, I think because I got into like a bicycle accident as a kid, I had to stay inside and like heal. I broke my collarbone when I was like 7. Yeah, it really sucked. But I stopped playing outside and I started watching more TV. And then it was like this portal into a different universe.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, I think since then I've always had this curiosity about it, but more so about the people who selected what was being shown on TV. I was always curious about like who are these people behind
right.
choosing when these films come on, why these films come on. I think PBS was that more offered more exotic programming really late at night, like 3 a.m. I think I came upon a Marlon Riggs film And it's funny because I feel like I always remember like the most experimental visual works from my childhood, just always being like programmed late at night, and then I'll be reintroduced to it now as an adult. Um, One of the films that was actually, it's going to be playing at Film Forum, but it's called Diva, and I'm
Sure.
forgetting the filmmaker's name. But I remember watching that film when I was like, as a teenager or preteen, and just being so admired, in the moment of watching it. So film kind of, I mean, when you grow up in the TV age or cable, with cable,
Jean-Jacques. Is it possible it's Jean-Jacques Benet?
yes,
Diva?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. No, I'm definitely a child of the TV age. I mean, a generation before you, at least. But
But
um,
cable TV was like this lawless, I feel like, a landscape of cinema. HBO was just kind of coming out, and everyone was kind of playing with softcore porn. So once you had cable or bootleg cable, you were like in a different
right.
you're in a different realm then. So, when I just experiencing that as a kid really helped to create this curiosity that I have now with it. And, also wanting people to watch good stuff. Like, I think
Right.
with what like streaming now is so much garbage. I mean, at least that's what I think. So, sometimes it's good to have that guidance.
Well, a lot of what is made in terms of big budgets, certainly it's made for not, and with the intention of a lot of non-English speaking people seeing it. So the dialogue is not a priority, the writing, and it's trying to reach as big an audience as possible. That's obviously one tier of it. I mean, there's still some incredible cinema being made, but it's harder to find, and people do look for people like yourself to help guide them, and maybe myself, and help them figure out, because it's just overwhelming for the average person. Like, where do I begin? And, how do I figure this out? So they go for whatever is promoted the most, right? Typically.
Typically, and I guess people enjoy the experience of commercial big budget films. I mean, my dad, who was, and I feel like everyone says this, but yeah, my dad was a big influence when it came to classic films. He loved his westerns, his spaghetti westerns.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah,
Like the Italian or Spanish type of
yeah,
spaghetti westerns?
yeah, fistful of dollars,
Okay. Yeah,
dollars
once upon a
more.
time in the West. Yeah.
And now, and it's funny, I used to hate those films. I mean, my dad also liked the Christian films too. And actually, I think I saw one recently. It came on during Easter, The Greatest Story Ever Told.
Oh,
So it was
yeah,
just,
but those were Hollywood epics.
yeah.
You just had a biblical themes, right? I mean, but they're huge. Those movies were hugely successful, like the Bible, the ten. It's like, yeah,
But my dad, he would watch those, and he would make us watch them.
sword and
And
sandal movies.
oh, is that
Those,
what they're called?
some of them. Well, like, I mean, there's the biblical films, and then there's like all of those gladiator types of movies as well. And then there was some crossover, like Spartacus seemed to be, Jesus was like, it was during the time of Jesus, but you know, I think.
Yeah. I mean, those
Anyway,
films are great though.
yeah. But
When you actually, I mean, I'm not into religion or anything,
yeah, me
but
either.
you sound like a devil worshiper when you say that.
well, it's more likely I would be doing that, but no. I mean, I only, as far as like historical aspects of religion interest me, but not. But if I have spirituality, and that's highly questionable. No, if I have spirituality, it's not a religious thing. It would be more of a,
Yeah,
of something else.
ancestral. I mean, I'm more into. I mean, not to get into like spirits and what's your higher power, but
Right.
I mean, we all have something we believe in, I think, and as long as it doesn't harm anyone, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I mean, and it's funny because I really wasn't interested in any of that kind of any of those films when I was a kid, of course, because they were long and boring. But now I love sitting and watching that stuff.
Yeah. Right.
It's
The
so
long.
soothing.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. And it's like you're just looking at it also from like how in the hell, with no CG, nothing, like they made these enormous productions, and it's kind of, I mean, they did destroy probably the Hollywood, studio system ultimately. It helped to, but like a movie like Cleopatra, I know did, you know.
Yeah, I know it almost led that studio to bankruptcy, but
Right.
I think yeah, I mean that film is definitely fraught, but obviously gorgeous, absolutely
Uh,
gorgeous. And then
so yeah.
Spartacus is just so, I mean, Kirk Douglas, like what a actor of our time,
Hmm.
I and now TC. I mean, I'm obsessed with TCM. The
You are.
truth, that's the truth. Yeah, I love it. I
Here it
can't
is.
get
Finally, you're spilling your guts. You're making a.
a plea to TCM. I
Well, I
mean, we
imagine it
would have.
was a big help maybe during the pandemic too, especially the first year or so when we were also spending so much time inside.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I didn't go to film school, so utilizing like theaters and channels like TCM and other sort of non-academic producing film related
Hmm.
analysis. These places I think are crucial for people like me. So TCM has just really been such a I just I historically has had an impact. I mean, I've always loved Elvis Mitchell. He was kind of the first programmer that I realized was an actual film programmer. And that was the discovery of this occupation. And I was just like, man, I would love to be that guy, not just
Yeah,
meet him, but
with that to reach that level, right?
yeah, he was on TCM. He was on TCM a lot
Hmm.
back in I think the early 2000s. And he was on there recently, I think, introducing some jazz works. But yeah, he was kind of that guy for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I've tried a couple of times to get him onto Filmwax radio, but not success yet. No success yet. But I'm making a note to myself to try again. The timing just has to be right.
This is true. And then, when you beat them over the head hard enough,
Right.
then they
Or if you meet them in
eventually
person, just say hello. I mean, I find sometimes once you have that connection, you know,
the
you
the
can
the
stalk him in a little bit for find out when he's in New York, and then just accidentally run into him there at something. I think he's LA based, though, right? Uh,
I think so.
yeah. But Jake, you mentioned Jake Perlin before, and he's a great to have that relationship is pretty good because he's very well connected too. So, I don't know. Do you? I mean, I'm assuming you learned somewhere along the line that the conversation that you have with your audience after the screening is actually the real stuff, right? And that the film is often a vehicle for the conversation, right? I mean, that's what I learned. I just figured that something, and I only learned from doing it. Like I didn't realize because I thought, oh, let's just share this movie I really like, I want to share it with people, and that of course is a part of it. But after a while I realized I really got to focus on things that make the conversations pop, and make those the special that people leave at the end of the connected to each other, people sharing stuff and having a meaningful life, if not changing, at least, stimulating evening.
Mm. Was there a question there, or
Yeah.
were
Yeah,
you
that's
having
that's my idea of a question. Do you have that type of experience? Question mark.
or I mean, am I as enthusiastic with the Q&A as I am with the film itself? I mean, for me, it's all of it. It's the introduction, it's the film, it's the Q&A after, and it's the pre-production. It's finding the film, finding the
Right.
whether or not it's a DCP or a film print,
Mm-hmm.
making the relationship over email with the distributor or the filmmaker, or whoever might have the rights to the film.
Right.
The whole pomp and circumstance of the whole experience is, I guess, what makes me love it so much. Even the pain of waiting for the email that says no, you can't screen the film. I'm just like, at least I know.
I can't imagine that happens too often, but
No, but there's often a non-response, um, and that's hard to accept, because you expect it to come, you expect the response to come at least within the week, and then when you don't get it, 2 weeks pass, and then 3 weeks, and it's just like, damn, they're never going to respond to this. But then you never know, you get a response a year later, which actually recently happened to me. And I was having like a pretty bummy day, and then a response from this one person a year later, even so, really just made the day worthwhile.
yeah. Well, who is it now? You have to say who it is. Yeah.
It was the son of a producer by the name of Erwin Yablans.
Oh,
So
okay.
his son responded to me, because I was trying to get in touch with his father, for the film, The Miseducation of Sonny Carson, which is one of my favorite films ever, by Michael Campus. He also directed The Mac.
Oh, okay. Well, I've seen that one, but I
Well,
didn't. I only know like the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And no, there's
I
one other
think she
Miseducation movie. I think vaguely remember.
I think Lauryn Hill might have named her album after
It sounds like
um, Miseducation of Sonny Carson.
I would be
Uh,
surprised.
well, she has said that this film was an inspiration for her, not, just cinematically, not necessarily
Sure.
through music, but it's a very popular film amongst a lot of hip hop artists. It's kind of, I mean, within the context of blaxploitation, this is just it's one of those films that really resonates, I think, within the Black community. Separate from blaxploitation, I think more people look at it as like independent, early
Right.
independent, Black cinema.
Yeah. Well, right. It gets kind of included in as for shorthand. No,
I
there's
think.
actually a broader genre of.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Oh, I'm just saying. No, there was actually a genre outside of blaxploitation of American Black independent films. Sure.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, even though Michael, I believe, is not Black, he still managed to make a very impactful film, for the Black community.
What's his
Um,
name?
Michael Campus,
Oh, Michael Campus.
yeah, who's no longer living, unfortunately.
Oh,
But
so but do you tend to get, once you set up a schedule of screening, you tend to get the filmmaker, or I mean, I guess once in a while maybe you're showing things where people aren't around anymore, but you bring somebody every time.
Not every time, no. I like to have, if it's an in-person screening, because now so much of it has gone virtual.
Okay.
It is an in-person. I mean, yeah, I guess I generally like to get a person to speak to, more so than not. But it's always based on someone else's availability. But if it's a work that I truly, truly believe in, then it doesn't really matter either way.
Mhm. Well, so do you have something coming up? Or well, first of all, I was seeing your posting lately. Are you, correct me if I'm wrong, are you fundraising right now?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I am currently. We
Because
just
as you
hit.
mentioned before, it's to get the rights to show a film can cost a lot of money sometimes, for one thing.
I think it can be very expensive to screen a body of work. I think a lot of people think that film programming or theatrical screenings are can be lucrative for the filmmaker or distributor, but sometimes it's not, because the a large part of the aspect of showing something is that you rely on people to come and people to pay for that screening. It really doesn't become cost effective if your attendance is lower than the amount of the licensing fee.
Right. And
Um,
then you
which
must
can
be, and then I'm sure there's an arrangement with Metrograph. They don't, right, where you're sharing some of those profits, if there are profits, right, or whatever.
well, they
Not to
pay.
get into the nitty
They,
gritty of your arrangement. I'm just saying, I'm trying to motivate people to say, look, the Alfreda's cinema needs help. I mean, like, we're all looking for help here.
we all are certainly looking for her help, certainly. And I think, I mean, there are more other things that require more of our attention, but that shouldn't like dismiss the need for arts and culture in our community. I think arts and culture is just as necessary as having a grocery store in a neighborhood. And I guess more so specifically referring to, what I'm hoping to do, which is create a Black film space, more so that looks like a micro cinema for Black films in Brooklyn. And I think, that's as urgent as shelter. Yeah,
I
I
agree. Yeah.
genuinely believe that. I mean,
See,
if we're not educating like people's minds, influencing their minds in a positive way, then they don't have, then there's no reason. I mean, my, I just think if there is a space where people can feel like they're, being influenced positively and not in a toxic way, like it could be a bar or a club or something like that. Even though, I often go to these spaces because, I mean, I enjoy it, but I just think that, film offers a different means of entertaining people that can be equal parts rest, equal parts education, and, fully entertaining. And it can also look like displaying history. And I don't think anything's wrong with that. And I think it should be dealt with in a very urgent and serious way.
so you're looking for a full-time space of your own,
Yeah.
whether that's wonderful. That's great. I mean, I think, people are going to be really poised for this because, there is an appetite for this, and there's, I think, it's got to be a terrific audience for it right in Brooklyn. So it's just a matter of people knowing that it exists, right? Enough sort of getting the word out effectively, so people, once but they know you're there, they're going to come.
I mean, that's the hope.
Sure.
That's the goal. But and I also think it does take people understanding that there's a possibility for something like this to exist. I mean, it's not anything new. There's other spaces that do offer Black films exclusively, but those spaces I think right now are hurting. I would mention Weeksville. I would mention Soul Cinema Cafe, that unfortunately had to close because of the pandemic. And I think, and it really sucks that Black films don't get the same valuation, as like Asian cinema or, white white narratives. And I'm not really sure why people would, exclude the value of those films for any of the others. I mean, I think,
Ignorance. Just
I mean,
I don't know. Bigotry? No. I think.
No, I don't think that's it. I think people are genuinely hungry for Black films. I mean, I've seen, there's sold out screenings not only of Black Panther, but of Babylon. I mean, BAM does such a wonderful job to curate Black cinema because they have such a great, programming team, or at least, I mean, they used to for sure. And there is the Caribbean Film Festival that goes on there, and of
Right.
course there's a African Film Festival,
Right.
that's
Wicked
founded by
Center has one.
yeah, Mehem Benetti is the founder of the African Film Festival. She programs that festival both at Lincoln Center and at BAM. And I think her programming and the people that work with her, do such an amazing job, and they get the attendance. But I think right now I'm at a place where I'm thinking, well, how does that actually benefit the community, the Black community of filmmakers, if those institutions aren't invested in the interest of that community? Because I mean, even though people are going to see Black films, it doesn't necessarily um, become equity within the community. Right. So that's the point I'm making with developing Alfreda Cinema as its own separate space, because as much as we have venues that will show Black films, I don't see it representing equity again in the community. So we really, I just want to see action in that respect, and I do believe that we can be an example for anyone else who has this similar goal.
So where do people go if they want to learn more about Alfreda Cinema, potentially even contribute, making a donation?
Well, the campaign is on GoFundMe.
We'll put something down here somewhere for people to see, and then at the end of
okay.
of the video, and then we'll put it also on social media. I'll share it with everybody.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Thank you.
So you're currently having a GoFundMe?
Yeah, I'm currently having a GoFundMe, and in June, I'm actually going to be hosting my first benefit event, which will be like a film immersive of, and I love visuals just in general, obviously, but this will be like a film immersive experience of the Janet Jackson's Got Till It's Gone music video, which I absolutely love and I'm obsessed with. So some friends and I are gonna try and replicate that experience and have it all wrapped up in this. Hopefully will be a boost to our GoFundMe. It's a lot of work.
I heard the sigh in there.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to ask. It's good to reach out and get support. And there are some film festivals also, and programmers at various film festivals that have their agenda aligns with yours. Maybe not exactly the same way, because maybe they're doing. But I think you need to maybe you've done this already, but
Yeah, I have reached out to a collective of Black programmers. I had hoped that there would be more support. But I am kind of feeling this sort of, I'm not sure if I don't know. I think across the board, the theatrical film community might feel a little hopeless when it comes to the future of cinema. I think, we're not only fighting are up against, these streaming services, but trying to deal with the attention span of Americans today, younger
Well, yeah, but
people.
they've been saying that for decades now. I mean, there hasn't been a pandemic in the last few decades, but there has been this thing about the attention span. I just don't know if I don't know that I buy into it. I think people love going out and having this experience. That's kind of why I was also talking about the conversation part, like, and trying to plug that as a real takeaway, or it's like what you can't get from streaming, what you cannot get from going just to any like big movie and going and popcorn type of movie in a big multiplex and then you leave. But the conversation and the connection and there's a richness and something you get from a micro cinema experience, or what you're doing, that is not, you can't get anywhere, just anywhere. And so that's why I was kind of trying to emphasize that. And I think people are starved for that. I mean, what did people talk about during the pandemic? I can't wait to hug somebody. I mean, right? Because we couldn't even touch each other. So I think people,
the big thing that a lot of people missed
yeah,
initially.
don't let it hold you down. And don't also, earlier you said about pestering, or well, you didn't use that word, but you kind of have to keep asking and bugging people sometimes. And I think that, like, I don't personally mind being bugged if it's for something good, and if it's so I think you should stay on top of people, and you can't do these things alone. You have to get help from people. And
yeah,
so,
fundraising is collective action.
right.
Yeah, the number I am now, if had it not been for people sharing and reposting and just in general, helping me to promote it. It would be great to get more of the industry involved, but I think people are seeing this as hopefully a foundation for the community itself. So
Uh-huh.
it does take the community to build something like this together.
Right. That's true. And when is the campaign? When is it end?
Well, since it's not on Kickstarter, which
Oh,
it has a time limit, GoFundMe, the campaign is over when we reach our dollar amount.
oh, that's fantastic. Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, since a lot of people use Kickstarter for their like films themselves, and that makes a lot of sense. But I think for a business, I would recommend going with GoFundMe,
Mm-hmm.
just because you don't have to put that
Well, if
ticking
you don't make
point.
your financial goal, you don't have to return it all.
Right? Yeah,
For one
there's
thing.
that.
Yeah. Which can be a strong motivating factor to make you succeed, I guess. And that's the idea, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I'm learning so much in terms of fundraising. It wasn't something that I had any idea about before starting this effort, but it felt so urgent to me. I just couldn't wait.
well, I'm 100% behind you. With you, I
Thank
mean.
you. I
Not with you.
mean,
I'm beside you. I'm not behind you. So I'll be there, right there helping. So let me do what I can myself, and I'll kick in
yeah, I
something.
mean,
But
having this discussion and how listening to me, advocate for it, it
mhm.
only helps to reinforce my own belief in what I'm doing.
Good.
So it really does help.
So you have to appear on lots of podcasts so you can keep doing that, and it keeps motivating you. That's important.
Yeah, I think people don't realize how much just positive reinforcement can help the
Yes.
person who aspiring to something, keep going, because if we don't have that, outlet
Speaking
or
it.
that,
Mhm.
yeah, speaking it into existence, then
Right. It really
it's
makes a big
wonderful,
difference.
I mean, and it's wonderful to see people like actually engage with you and believe in the things that you're saying. I love it. I'm just like, yes, I convinced another person. I'm like convincing, hundreds of people why it's important to have this business that
One at
I
a
think
time.
one at a time for sure.
Well, this was great. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad we finally made it happen. And I know it took a few, you know, attempts or what have you, but I was definitely committed to making it happen.
I appreciate that. I mean, not a lot of people will give away their platform to helping somebody fundraise essentially. So, it's appreciated for sure.
You're welcome. And we have known each other for quite a while now. And, I think it's all, yeah.
I feel like you came in on my first week of Film Movement.
Really? I didn't realize it was your first week, but I vaguely remember the circumstances, but yeah.
Right. And I feel like I was trying not to talk to you because I didn't want to get like I didn't want to get in trouble for having like these drawn out conversations with my friends at work.
That's nuts. But I don't know what it's like to work there. So
Well, I was the receptionist, so
right.
at the time, but
Right.
then I eventually moved into another position with them.
Yeah, I think by this time I came back, you had already definitely moved into a different position.
Yeah, because then you came to I forget the director that you then came and did it in person, but you did like two in
Probably two
person
or three.
recordings.
Yeah, I can't remember. But,
Are you still doing as many like new release film interviews or
not as much, but some, yeah. I just have to, I'm working full time, and when I was probably working different gigs back in the city, but now I just have like a one, and it just does take, I can't do these during the middle of the day anymore. Like I used to be able to have a much more, and of course I was doing just audio, and I would just run around and run over to Film Movement or run over to Kino Lorber or run over to Lincoln Center, then run down to Metrograph and then run up to, it was nuts. And I would just, with my microphones, what?
You're not running anymore.
No. I like the video thing and I like that too, but I like having the video kind of version of the show. It's nice, but and it's helpful for promoting too, like the show, and it's a nice, you can make clips and stuff, but I do miss the in-person, of course, too. And I'll have to get back to that eventually to some degree. I may just pop down to the city for like, if or for screenings. I'd like to get back down there and go to or festivals or the occasional event or something. And there's stuff up here, and I'm helping with the Woodstock Film Festival, and there's I'm going to be doing something with them. And then there's this online festival I'm involved with, which should be starting up shortly, which is on food and on issues around food. And that's an online festival. And then, but like I'm going to get credentials for Tribeca, and I this year I don't know if I'll be down there or not. I don't know. It depends. What I can do, I can always, even if they don't have an online festival, I could still, figure out which films I want to do, get in touch with filmmakers or the distributors or whatever, and still screen it at home, and then just do this.
Don't get screen fatigue?
No, I haven't been, well, yeah, a little bit, but I have a pretty good capacity. Yeah, sometimes, but I not too much. No, I mean, but I also spent a lot of time just like, now I'm like outdoor, like, I'm looking behind this screen, beyond and behind at this window, and I could see outside my window, there's a tree, and I could see the buds on the branches. They're just about to start opening. It's pretty exciting. I spent, and there's mountains just that way. I can't see them right now, but and that's fantastic. Like I really just needed this you know. So, to me, I like the combination of, I do better actually now with screens probably than ever because I have and then my son visits and we went to see Batman last week at the local, there's a small multiplex. It's almost like a draft house, but they don't have food or stuff like that. But it's like a real cinema. There's some local place called Upstate Films up here too, which are these indie houses. But then there's a like kind of a, it's you got to see it at some point. It's just this weird place, this huge parking lot. It's this old fashioned, but it's a small multiplex, and it's $6 for a new movie. $7 if you want to sit in a leather reclining chair. Can you imagine?
I mean, that's exactly the price it should be. Like
It should be right, affordable for people. I know.
Yeah, someone paid. A friend was telling me that they went to the AMC Essex, and I was asking them the ticket price, and I mean, $15 isn't that much, but I think they probably paid like 18 or so. Because
Yeah.
it's reaching $20 to see a film.
Right.
I
It's
mean,
nuts. It's crazy. So
like,
yeah, why would you? And you want to take your kids, and even though they might be a little discount, and if it's IMAX, you could spend, if you have a few people in your family, $100. It's nuts. But here it's like amazing, like $7 for the leather reclining chair. Okay, so I took my son to see the Batman, and then a couple of,
I that it came on cable this weekend.
Yeah. I'm glad we saw it in the movie theater because that, I don't know, it's very long, but I enjoyed it because it was his second time seeing it. And then we saw Spider-Man. I mean, he likes, but by the way, then we come home and we watch Godfather. Like, he's never seen it. So I showed him Godfather and Godfather 2, and he loved it. He really dug it. Like, and that's like the opposite. It's these long scenes shot in the dark, it's all character based, right? It's all like dialogue and long scenes, but then there's like revenge, and there is murder, and there's he really appreciated that, so I'm trying now. He's not a movie guy necessarily, although he goes to Sonic, but I'm slowly introducing him to all the class, like the ones that I want him to see, and build his film education until so one day he'll say, my dad was the guy, he introduced me. I mean, I think he'd already do that. But can you imagine? He doesn't care. Like, if he gets to be an adult, he's turning 18 in 2 weeks. And it's like, if he's 30 and he never saw much, and like, that would be an atrocity. Like,
yeah,
that I never.
it would be. I actually think I lacked a lot because I didn't have I mean, I don't think my dad really showed me much blaxploitation films, and I'm like, why wasn't this a part of, like,
Yeah.
why the westerns and not this?
Mm.
I was kind of a little, I mean, I am still holding resentment there, but yeah, it's important to show them the good stuff as early as possible.
And also his, and I have to give credit, his mother does show him also, and she'll and she does, of course, she's African American, so she'll bring us her tastes, and also as well, and her own aspirations in terms of what she wants to expose her kids to, so
Wait,
I think,
your family, I mean, were your parents were they also in film and art?
yeah, they were into it. I mean, they were not from the film world, they were artists, especially my mother. They got into kind of like the commercial side of art, as for making a living. But they were always into they were crazy about like Bergman and Fellini and Kurosawa. Like, they,
about them on Facebook. You have
what's
such a
that?
love. I said I love when you post about them on Facebook. I love the photos you share of your mom.
Oh yeah, well, and this is her birthday today, and she's got very advanced dementia, so that's the sad part of it. But I have to say, she was beautiful and real special person, and she and my dad, they're together. They just the one definite thing that they um I inherited from them was this appreciation for art cinema, because you mentioned PBS before and what you saw late on PBS. Yeah, PBS when I was growing up, they just would show like experimental films and art films and
Yes, was just, I mean, ahead of
science.
its time back in the 90s. And I
Well, I
just,
think what no, I don't think so. I think everybody else was behind the times. They were showing crap, and then PBS was actually right on. They. I'm kind of kidding, but
no,
yeah,
you're right. They were on the time. They were on the time. They were showing works
they were
by like,
setting this the example of what could see, like, because there were films out there, and they would show like samurai films, or they would show like foreign subtitled films, and nobody else would show that on commercial network television.
yeah, yeah. I mean, PBS has certainly changed since then.
Yeah,
Is unfortunate, even though I do love a Ken Burns documentary. I do love a good one when it
yeah,
pops up.
for sure.
Yeah, I wish they supported more local networks and filmmakers, and maybe brought back community television.
Hmm.
That stuff is so underappreciated, and it would just, it would only be right. But I think 13 does have, like, 13 NYC community, but this stuff that I see on there, I actually did see a really beautiful documentary once. I can't think of the name, but it was about a Brazilian archivist who was currently working to uncover the hidden history of slavery in Brazil,
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
as operating as early as the 70s, or as late as the 70s.
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, and I was just like, wow, this is terrific. But so, you know, this and that sometimes.
Sure.
See, it's funny, people really, and this is my case for linear cable, because I love the unexpected aspect of it. When you kind of pay for streaming services, you know what you're gonna get. You know,
Right.
you're gonna go into some sort of graveyard of films when you're picking through Netflix, and they already have the algorithm for you. But essentially, most of those films are going to be very commercial. I mean, they initially started it with international films, what I thought was, really groundbreaking cinema. But I've also recently discontinued my membership with them, just because I was absolutely just disappointed with the service and the content. But yeah, I guess I still love the idea of flipping through the channel, and coming upon something that, I would never have encountered otherwise, if it wasn't on cable, and just discovering something completely new, completely out of my realm of my sphere of influence.
Hmm.
Um,
Let somebody choose it for you, which is what you do.
yeah.
No wonder, right?
It's the idea of exploration, and you know
I guess it's,
oh, you can hear that.
yeah, a little bit. Can't you?
Yeah, it's just how I live. Yeah, no, that's my upstairs neighbors, so
Gotcha.
apologize for that.
Well,
um
you can let them know they're on it. They've made it onto a podcast too. um,
Hope you cut out that segment, that part.
no, no. That I like leaving it all in. This is Melissa Lyde, who is the programmer for Alfreda Cinema. Go to alfredacinema.com.
Yeah, alfredacinema.com. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Instagram is kind of the where I'm most active.
Mhm.
Generally sharing, a lot of my film interests and inspirations, and I post about our upcoming screenings. Yeah, it's a fun platform for me, and I
Mhm.
think that's where the large or the majority of my audience kind of exists.
Well, if they're smart, they'll just they'll figure out a way to kind of also create a Twitter type of technology to it, because a lot of people are leaving Twitter, I have a feeling. So
You
that's
think
another.
you're gonna leave Twitter because of Elon?
Well, the jury's out a little bit, but I mean, I think they're going to lose a certain amount of people, but maybe
I don't
not
know
enough to
what his
let.
politics are.
What's that?
I, I don't know. It seems like I don't know what his politics are as far as
Not
freedom of
good.
speech.
Oh,
Oh no, good.
yeah, I don't think they're,
Well,
but
something else will rise up, and I
right,
also feel like it's interesting because I do feel like Instagram has kind of updated itself out of existence, and they're largely trying to compete with TikTok.
right,
But the bread and butter of this platform used to be the post, and sometimes the stories, but now you don't get as much. You don't know when like the people you're following have posted something new, so it's kind of hard to engage with the people you actually want to engage with, whereas Instagram is kind of forcing us to engage more with advertisers.
right,
I mean, and businesses, to maintain this consumerism. I mean, I'm honestly just completely disappointed by all of the social media platforms. I don't think any of them are in the interest of people. They're just harvesting our data, as they say.
exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And, it is what it is.
well, we live in interesting times, that's for sure.
Yeah, but we still have each other.
That's right. And cinema, great cinema. So the best kind of social media or social interaction is done in person still. That's why you don't have to contend with advertisers, you know, and algorithms.
I think I just like people to make up their own minds.
There you go. Melissa Lyde for office.
I can see it, I can see it, but I don't think I'm corrupt enough to be a
No, right.
politician.
That's the problem. You'd have to be much more corrupt.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
well, this was
What are
terrific.
the?
Yeah.
I was just saying, what are the notes you've been taking? That's
Oh,
all.
I just scribble down sometimes just to remind myself. I wrote down, well, you were on episode 392 in February 2017. I was going to mention that. I just wrote down alfredacinema.com, Elvis Mitchell, The Miscreation of Sonny. What was his last name?
The miseducation of Sonny
Miseducation of, what's the last name?
Carson.
Carson,
C.
that's right. Carson. Michael Campus. I was just, sometimes I'll make a note to like check something out.
Yeah, I highly recommend that film.
Yeah, I don't believe I've seen that particular one. So you've educated me. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Someone's got to do it. Why not
Damn
me?
yes, exactly. Why not? Yeah, no, and I have to and then I have to write down here to get the website for your GoFundMe. So I'm always taking notes. Anyway, thank you for doing this. Thanks for making the time. I'm gonna have dinner. I don't know about you.
We're gonna start the interview.
What?
I said, when are we gonna start the interview?
Tomorrow, let's say at 7, or I know it's the non-interview, right?
Right, right. That's your style, though, right?
Yeah.
Did you have any questions written down at all?
No, but in my head, I've done this too many times. I know what to ask. I mean, we got all the fundamentals. I mean, the idea, the impetus was the GoFundMe, but then you have, like, I was curious. I just asked what I'm curious about. But also, see, we start talking, and all sorts of stuff just comes naturally. Why interrupt that with a list of questions and break that special rhythm that comes organically? Like, then you can get something very special out of that you might miss if you just decide to stick to your agenda, of questions. So yes, be prepared. Typically have questions. I always agree with, especially if I'm going to get somebody on that's a little, that I don't know, or who might be intimidating, or that I might get myself be a little bit like,
Who is the most
you got a Werner Herzog on, have some questions for fuck's sake, but but I'm not saying you're not intimidating. Don't get me wrong. What were you saying?
I'm glad I'm not intimidating. I don't want to be.
No, I don't either. Just don't cross me. That's all I tell people.
Same. I guess when you're from New York, you don't like to be crossed.
Hey, it's one of our greatest, assets is that we have, and we're prepared. I mean, we're not pushovers, so.
I
but
think
we can be the friendliest people in the world, but just we also have, we're not feckless. We're not fucking.
We're all hanging by a thread, and we're ready to snap.
Yeah. Yeah. So watch it.
Well, this was wonderful. I won't hold you up too much, but let me know when you come back to me. We should get coffee or something like that.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, and I'm coming down. My son is down there in Brooklyn, and I come down. I have a lot of friends and family there. Of course, my mother's there, my sister. So.
I'm glad you're, out of the city. I think anytime I can get out of a city, it's such a relief. But then, of course, I'm ready to get back here. Of course.
Yeah. Now, it's yeah. And I miss it. I don't, when I go down there, depending where I am anyway, sometimes I don't get on the local subway and I have an appointment, because then on a Sunday, that's what happened to me. And I was just like pulling my hair out of my head. It was just like a nightmare.
Yeah, the subways have just become, similar to the depths of hell. It's horrible. It is a horrible experience.
Now, have you noticed?
I don't care if someone's shooting up the place, or if it's just, a slow crawl into the city. The experience is just utterly grueling in every aspect.
Have you noticed in the last couple of weeks, have you noticed any difference in terms of security in the train, or police presence or anything?
Yeah, I have seen more police in the subway.
Okay. Well, that's all right.
More so in stations that, are in predominantly white neighborhoods.
Well, thank God. Thank God.
You gotta protect them.
No, I mean, how many times I've gotten, like, people walk by me and bang their Trader fucking Joe's bag into me. It's a nightmare. Thank God there are finally police I can complain to.
It's just they police the neighborhoods, I think, that complain the most. I haven't seen any in.
Oh, I see what it is. Right. Yeah.
Like I'm at the L, like the nearest train to me. I live in like a 2-zone transfer. So,
oh boy, what neighborhood are you in? Can you mention it? I'll cut this part out.
Yeah, happily. I'm in East Flatbush, which actually feels like living in the country, because it's so far out of the.
Wait, what's the stop that you're closest to?
Church Avenue off of the 2 and the 5, or the New Lot stop,
Okay.
which might as well be Canarsie, in off the L. So yeah, anytime my presence is experienced, the travel was grueling, but
Well, I think say use your Go. No, I shouldn't say this. I was going to joke and say use the GoFundMe for a car, but that's not a good joke. That's not a good.
Not when other platforms have been mismanaging or misusing their funds. Like Black Lives Matter.
Oh, I see. Well, let's do it part 2, or better yet, get a coffee together. We'll just one of these days we'll meet up, and or I'll come to a one of your events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should come.
I want to.
The Alfreda Cinema full-on experience.
I agree with you.
Or if anything, definitely come to our opening night of Alfreda Cinema when we do have our own space.
Oh well, for that's even best of all, or all the above. Why do I have to make a choice? I can just do everything. Yeah. I want to. Yeah. So I'm going to plug everything, and we'll get you all that money you need, and you'll get your own space in Brooklyn, and it'll happen.
So you have 50,000 followers on your podcast. They're all gonna fund.
I don't think so. And overall, maybe of all the episodes I've done, there've been probably 500,000. But yeah, I know.
Do you upload this? I mean, but you upload to YouTube, and it might go viral.
There you go. Yeah.
One hope.
I'm gonna have to split this into multiple. Like I have to do clips from this, because it's been like an hour and a half. When did we start? 7?
Yeah, about 7. But I think we were kind of, warming up. So I guess you could probably find where the the bread and butter of the conversation is, and then you could probably end it wherever you like to.
Okay.
How long does how long is each episode usually?
10 minutes. No, it starts usually around 20 minutes, and then it can go to an hour. I mean, I've done, depends on the guest, but I don't really care about the time frame so much because I used to worry about things like that. But I figure people want to hear it, they will. If they get bored, they'll turn it off, they'll come back to it, whatever they want to do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I have a shorter segment. Sometimes it's like, if it's through a publicist or a distributor, typically they'll give me 20 minutes because I say I don't really do less than 20 minutes. That's my rule. Like if they say you have 10 minutes, I'm saying thank you anyway, but I don't do 10-minute interviews because I don't. So I get to plug your thing and then say goodbye. That's great. Thanks. All right. Well, this was great. Pleasure. This was fantastic. It was really nice to connect with you. And I really do mean it when we'll do it again. And we don't have to wait 5 years.
Yeah, I hope not.
All right. Well, have a good night.
You too.
All right.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Right. Okay. Bye.